Stay tuned to see how I made this Christmas ornament with a turned Christmas tree inside. This week's project is going to be a short one. I'm jumping on the bandwagon of Christmas ornaments. I've done a lot in the past, but I've never showed them on my channel. This is going to be what's known as a windowed ornament. You'll see why in a moment. Here I'm just marking the stock, and I'm actually doing these as a production run. I'm doing 7 for gifts for co-workers. So I'm just making a mark so that they're all the same distance from the top. Then I'm just drilling a small pilot hole here on my drill press, and I'm doing it on all 4 sides. You can see that I've marked all 4 sides. Now, I did end up using these stops, but I also eyeballed it a little bit as I started to drill it. Some of them had to be adjusted just because of the size of the stock. Once I've had my pilot hole drilled in all the stock, then I switched to my Forstner bit. Once I did this, I realized my pilot hole was a little too big anyways, but it still was helpful in placing it. At this point, I drill halfway down, just a little over halfway down, on all 4 sides to give me that windowed effect through into the stock in all 4 directions. Here you can see the window in all 4 directions going all the way through the stock. Once I've got those drilled out, I mount them in the lathe and start turning it round. Now obviously here where those windows are, I'm still going to get it round, but I do have to be careful because I don't want to take any of the corners out. I want to maintain those. But it is going to be ball shaped around that, so I'm able to cut quite a bit off the top and bottom. And then I'll just make a finial on the bottom of kind of a random design. In order to remove most of the stock, I ended up using my round carbide tool for the majority of this turning. At the very end, just to create some fine details, some edges and so on, I did switch to my skew chisel just to give a crisper cut and again a little more detail. This wood is butternut, so butternut is a little soft and grainy, kind of like oak, so it does tear out a little bit, but it sands very easily. Like all wood, the sharper the tool, the better. And on this project, I did end up changing my carbide bit because I did find that it was a little dull, and that's what was causing the tear out. I should mention, especially in this windowed area, you can see there's not a lot of stock there, so I am turning a lot of air. So for this, I turned at a very high speed. I turned at about 1200, which is, my lathe has a belt pulley drive system, and on the lower speed pulleys, 1200 is as fast as it will go. I could have switched it to get a higher speed, but 1200 seemed to be fine enough. Here you can start to see close to getting to the finished product. Again, I just added a little bit of detail on the bottom and the top. Again, switching between my round scraper to remove wood and my skew chisel for detail. For this project, sanding with paper worked the best, and again, sanding over those windowed areas, speed is your friend. To finish the project on the lathe, I just took a saw to cut off the remaining material at the top. Here you can see the 7 windowed ornaments that I made. They're all different. The only thing that's consistent about them is the fact that they all have a windowed area in the same spot. The next thing that I needed to do is turn some very small Christmas trees that will be mounted inside the lathe. So I had 7 of these. So I just have here 1/2 inch square stock that I mounted in my chuck and then turned it round. This piece I'll end up getting 2 or 3 trees out of, but I turned the whole thing down round first before I started cutting the individual trees. I just made a mark so I knew the height of the tree because it does have to stand up inside that ornament. Here I just took my cut-off tool and made a plunge cut. Sorry that my fat head is in the way. I find when I'm doing these very small pieces, I tend to lean over a little bit more than I do when I'm doing a bowl. So I tapered the piece and then made 3 plunge cuts along the height of it to make it appear like a tree. It's fine work and not a lot of detail, but just take my time. Then cut the very top of the tree off and then cut the base off as well. And then repeat this process 7 more times. This piece will end up getting painted green with a brown stock and then get mounted, glued inside the ornament. So here's the final product with a tree inside the ornament that's been painted green with a brown trunk and glued into place, and lacquer applied to the whole ornament.